Hi, my name is Chuck Foresman, and I want to share with you today some information about SHIELDEX. SHIELDEX is one of the newest HPPD corn herbicides registered for use in the USA. It was registered in the summer of 2017, and so it's been used commercially for several years now here in the States. It can be used in all states except for California, Hawaii, and Alaska. This is a highly concentrated product. The use rate's 1 to 1.35 fluid ounces per acre for broad spectrum weed control. It can be used in all types of corn and provides excellent crop tolerance. And I think it's important to note in this era of weed resistance that we're finding really good control of amaranthus species, your tall water hemp and your Palmer amaranth species. So I think that's pretty important. The other thing I want to point out on this slide is that we've got over 450 trials in the database that we've looked at. And so it's a pretty extensive database. Now, on this slide, there's a lot of information, and I'm not going to cover it all, but I will cover the most important bits, and you can read the other parts. The mode of action of SHIELDEX is to inhibit HPPD enzyme. Now, there's three families of HPPD inhibitors. Their performance and their differences and characteristics of each herbicide within the family varies just a little bit. That can be seen in the field from time to time, certainly. So the first family I want to talk about are the pyrazoles. In the pyrazoles, you have SHIELDEX and Impact. And the triketones, you have Callisto, Laudis, and bicyclopyrone. And in the isoxazoles is Balance. By comparison, there are 11 different families in the photosystem 2 herbicides. In the photosystem 2, you're going to recognize this. The first family I'll talk about are the triazines, which is atrazine and simazine. Another family in the photosystem 2s are the triazinones. An example would be metribuzin. Another family, a third family, would be the nitriles, which is bromoxynil or Bactrol. So the mode of action might be to inhibit photosystem 2, but the way that the herbicide goes about that inhibition can differ. So HPPD herbicides indirectly block the carotenoid biosynthesis of 4-hydroxyphenylpyruvate dioxygenase, which is just a long set of words for HPPD enzyme. This in turn interferes with the plastoquinone biosynthesis. And plastoquinones, you can just think of them as sunscreens. They basically block the sun from destroying chlorophyll, and we know how important chlorophyll is. So the specific binding sites of the HPPD enzyme, it may differ depending upon the HPPD herbicide. So the point is that not all HPPD herbicides are the same, and they can possess different biological properties. And you would well know that some of these HPPD herbicides, like Callisto, I mentioned, is primarily a broadleaf weed herbicide, whereas a compound like SHIELDEX is going to have efficacy on both grasses as well as broadleaves. Just keep that in mind. They're all HPPDs, but they perform just a little bit differently depending upon how they affect the HPPD enzyme. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the symptomology that we find with the use of SHIELDEX. So you see the bleaching or the albinism on this giant ragweed plant. You notice that it's translocated through the plant, through these leaves that were treated. The material was translocated into the meristems here. Because we know it's a translocated product, it's important that we are able to efficiently get SHIELDEX into the plant so it could do its job. In order to hasten that or to make the best of getting the largest amount of SHIELDEX into the plant, you got to use a really good adjuvant system. So methylated seed oils have always been very good. Crop oil concentrates are also very good. I'll also say this, that we recommend the use of atrazine. So the expression of this bleaching can be affected by many things. It can be affected by drought. It can be affected by cold, poor fertility, high plant density, large plants. Maybe they're just getting a little bit too tall. So the amount of bleaching that you're going to find can be affected by all these conditions, these environmental conditions. This bleaching will occur more quickly when you use atrazine. I think it's really important that we take advantage of this 1-2 punch that you get when you put SHIELDEX plus atrazine together. They really work well together, and they're able to provide this peak control that we're after. And I would also note that in most cases, you're going to find excellent performance starting to be expressed at 2 weeks after application, and you should see necrosis by about that 4th week. So to get the most out of SHIELDEX, apply to actively growing weeds and use full labeled rates. It's really important that growers use that full ounce, or if they're in larger weeds, heavy dense populations, difficult weeds, that they use the 1.35 ounce rate. Don't go cutting the rate. It's really important because if you use sublethal doses, any of the surviving weeds from that sublethal dose is able to create seed. Then next year, when those weeds grow and are exposed to an HPPD inhibitor, they're going to be difficult to control because they've got genes now that were able to tolerate a sublethal dose. They're going to be able to tolerate an even higher dose. And you can see where this is going year after year. If you keep doing this, you're not going to be able to control it. And that's basically the story of evolution of resistance. It's important to use full labeled rates. And it's also I recommend to people that you use a tank mix partner that's also effective against the species that you're after. So tank mixing another herbicide that's effective against the target weeds that you're after is a great best management practice that I recommend. So using atrazine, let's say you're in the Western Corn Belt where you have low humidities, you have really, really fast growing amaranthus species, difficult weeds. I'd put status in the tank too. So atrazine and status with SHIELDEX on some of these tough populations can be critical to successful weed control and helping us manage the evolution of resistant weeds. So that's three different modes of action that you'd be putting in the tank. That should do a pretty good job in some of those more arid parts of the Corn Belt. The other thing that's important here, and it goes without saying, is you always have to add a crop oil concentrate or a methylated seed oil. And in the work that we've seen, methylated seed oils typically perform just a little bit better, a little more consistent, but crop oil concentrates are also very, very good. The other thing I want to mention here is in terms of the application timing, we recommend that you apply this product before the weeds get to be greater than 5 inches tall, as you can see here on the slide. Also, with respect to corn, it should be up to V6 corn or less than 20 inches tall. Keep that in mind when you get out there. Crop rotation to small grains, basically 3 months. You have lots of different crops there, forages, rice, sorghum, sunflower, peanut. 9 months. Sugar beets, got to be careful. Let's give that 18 months after application for the crop rotation interval. As far as pre-harvest interval is concerned, 45 days for field corn and popcorn, 35 days for sweet corn, and 21 days for silage. All these are very competitive recommendations. I just want to point out a couple of quotes from Dr. Brian Young, a highly respected weed scientist. I've known Brian for a number of years. So I asked him to do some research looking at SHIELDEX herbicide and provide some comments that he would want to pose about the product. And basically, he found that the performance of SHIELDEX on water hemp and palmer amaranth was good or better than the other HPPDs studied in an extensive body of work at Michigan State University. And in one trial, it was pretty dramatic. They found 95% control with SHIELDEX, while other HPPD herbicides did not demonstrate control greater than 70%. That's pretty important information. Now, I'm not going to go through the stoplight analysis, and y'all know what a stoplight analysis is. Red is not so good. Green is really good. Yellow is you're getting there, but you're not quite there. So all the products used in the top part of the slide are used alone. But when you put atrazine with it, it helps put green on the screen. We're starting to see very good control, a number of weeds that are listed here. I always recommend atrazine. Atrazine and the HPPD inhibitors work well together. Grass weed control is shown on this slide. And again, you see the same trend. Much better control when you put atrazine with SHIELDEX. We're getting the kind of control that most farmers are going to look for and want. We see some pretty good performance of fall panicum. Now, we haven't got it on the label yet, but that's something that we're going to be looking into. But the data are very supportive of working on fall panicum. So to wrap this up, SHIELDEX is a reliable post-emergence crop-safe broadleaf herbicide. It has shown excellent control of yield-robbing amaranthus species like water hemp and palmer amaranth. To ensure that you get good performance with SHIELDEX, I always recommend that you use at least a half pound of atrazine per acre and a highly recommended MSO or crop oil concentrate. And you can talk to your dealer and distributor about what to use there. The synergy between HPPD herbicides and photosystem 2 herbicides is important. It's real. Anybody that's used these products understands that. So always, wherever you can, put atrazine within the tank. The grower achieves high levels of weed control with that mix, and you delay the onset of weed resistance, and it enables or helps us deliver long season weed control, which very importantly reduces the weed seed bank. So doing a poor job or an incomplete job of controlling weeds, basically what you're doing is you're enriching that seed bank so that you're going to have to deal with it in later years. Help farmers understand and dealers and distributors understand what the right thing to do is, and that is to use full labeled rates, use mixtures where it's appropriate, and a really really good adjuvant system. And think about that timing of application. Don't let these weeds get to be trophy weeds. Get that application on before they're 5 inches tall, and use good and proper methods when making application. SHIELDEX is an important herbicide, and it's a viable option for corn growers to consider when managing tough weeds. Thank you very much for your time.